So the Democratic Alliance today kicked off their 2019 election campaign at the Mary Fitzgerald Square in Johannesburg today. And the battle cry is corruption, which the DA says has been transferred to the new administration. With us in studio is DA Youth Leader Luyolo Mphithi. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. Your slogan today is Team One South Africa. Talk to us about that.
Thank you for having me. Team One South Africa is the DA's national campaign launch for 2019. And basically it is a call to action for all South Africans to unite, to understand that our diversity is our strength, and for us to really build a future where all South Africans feel at home, feel included, feel South African, is really to unite South Africans through the Team One South Africa.
Do you think that's going to balance that narrative that always says, you know, the DA is a white party and it needs to move away from that if it's going to gain more ground that it already has as the main opposition? Well,
I mean, the DA is the most diverse political party, I think, in this country. And one of the things that we pride ourselves in is diversity, the ability for us to really reflect what our country looks like through our leaders, through our structures, and everything that we do. So I do think that as we move into 2019, that is the strength that we want to show as a party, is to say that our diversity is our strength, and that is what we want to depict.
How would you define diversity in a South African context and as the DA says?
I think diversity has much more to do than just about race. We are talking about gender, we're talking about different sexual orientations. There's a number of things that make up diversity, and I think those are the type of things that we want to bring to the forefront. The understanding that there's a gender struggle in this country where women are not finding their space in this country. How are we as the DA going to make sure that we reflect that particular diversity when it comes to women leadership, when it comes to youth taking the space, owning the space about our issues as young people? And I think that's what we want to bring to the forefront with the team that has been announced by the leader.
So a move away from looking at race so much as a point for diversity and more looking at people's orientations, looking at their genders.
Well, we're not moving away from race. I think race is fundamentally ingrained within the South African context, politically, socially, in every way possible. So we can never move away from looking at race. But I think what we're saying is that diversity is not just only about race. Okay. There's a number of different other aspects about it as well.
Okay, you've spoken also about wanting to take a Gauteng today, Mmusi Maimane saying that, as well as retain the other provinces that you have. Give us an insight into how the DA plans on doing this.
Well, we have the premier candidate, Swali Msimanga, who's currently the mayor of Tshwane. His campaign has already kicked off. He's meeting with communities across Gauteng. He's finding out what are the key issues so that he can present his manifesto when the time comes. We're looking at retaining at the Western Cape. Alan Winde has been chosen as the premier candidate. We're very excited to see his campaign kick off next week as well. So there's a lot of planning that has gone into these campaigns, really to speak to communities and understand these issues so that we really articulate their concerns.
What would you say about the criticism that Pretoria, where Swali Msimanga is mayor now, is struggling because of those allegations of nepotism, hiring people without qualifications at very high salaries, that tender issue? And the DA is also running on the ticket of wiping out corruption. So how are you going to say to people who may be thinking about voting for you, this is actually not an issue?
Well, I mean, if you look at the city of Tshwane, we've been in government for 2 years now. And what we see is that, you know, there's a lot of challenges that are historical. And I think one of the best things that Swali has done is really to show South Africans, and particularly people and residents in Tshwane, that we as the DA believe in, you know, corruption being number one, the number one enemy to residents. And one of the things that we want to do is really articulate that particular message. And I think these issues don't take 2 years to fix. So we have 5 years. We've been given this term, and we hope that we really deal with the issues.
No, so my question was more about what's happened with him as mayor, with him hiring a chief of staff who is not qualified at a really high salary, and this multi-million rand tender during his tenure.
Well, he wasn't involved in the recruitment process of the chief of staff, as you know. He was involved after the fact. And immediately when he found out about that particular issue, he made sure that she was suspended. That was the decision that was taken. And I think he was able to pick up the issue and the mistake and act when it was necessary.
So the DA as an opposition party has done quite well in some areas, especially when it comes to coalitions. We saw you taking Nelson Mandela Bay, Athol Trollip installed as mayor, and then kicked out later on. How are you going to try and work to ensure that those coalitions, which are quite shaky if you do want to take more power in 2019, do stay? Because we've also heard from the EFF that if you don't toe certain party lines, they're not going to work with you.
Well, above everything, residents will come first within these municipalities, and we are out of government in Nelson Mandela Bay, but that does not mean that we will stop speaking for the residents of Nelson Mandela Bay. I think above all, we put the residents first, and if there's any party that is in line and in agreement with what we believe, which is making sure that people receive the services that they need to receive. Local government is the core face of service delivery, and any party that agrees with us on that matter and ensures that we don't have corruption within local government, that we provide opportunities for young people, that we make sure that there's skill centers where people can develop themselves, those are people that we want to work with. So as long as we have people that see that vision, that agree with that vision, then we'll continue to work with them.
Okay, let's talk about your portfolio. Specifically, you work with youth. That's also quite a contested space when it comes to elections next year. We see the DA doing quite well, like Dasso winning at UCT last year. In other spaces, you are competing with the ANC and the EFF and not doing well. So what's your focus on youth like, and how do you plan to convince youth voters that the DA is the way to go?
Well, look, the facts is that we have 10 million people who are unemployed. 3.7 million of those people are young people. Half of those people are people who've gone to institutions of higher learning and are unable to find a job. So essentially what we are saying as the DA Youth is that we understand that youth unemployment is a chronic issue. It's a ticking time bomb in this particular country. And what we are advocating for a number of things. One is we're saying that young people, why must a young person have experience when they come out of university? They won't qualify for a particular job. So we're saying remove experience as a prerequisite to get a job. We're saying that you don't need a driver's license to receive an interview. These are things that are really barriers to us as young people getting jobs. And what we want to speak on is really say that we need young people to be employed. We don't want to inherit a fault. We want to inherit a country that we can be proud of, a country that we can continue to contribute to. So I think these are the visions and these are the messages that we want to articulate to young people. We want to make sure that young people have access to education, because education is really fundamental. I, as a young black Xhosa man, made it where I am today because of education. That was the only thing my parents could give me. So we need to ensure that young people have those opportunities where they can use education if you have nothing. Coming from the rural Eastern Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, education is the only thing that you can have to really empower yourself. So these are the things that we really want to say, that government must listen. The private sector must be able to listen so that they come to the forefront and have a conversation, not without us, but with us in that particular table, because these are issues that affect us. These are issues that we will continue to face if government and the private sector don't come to the forefront.
So very briefly, what are your policies around that? You speak about education. Are you also for fee-free higher education like the ANC is implementing?
We are for free education. The DA believes in free education. The ANC is not providing free education. There are students right now who are unable to go to universities. There's NSFAS that has not paid students for the whole entire year. So students are actually suffering at higher institutions of learning because the free education has not materialized. So what we are saying as the DA Youth is that we want to make sure that students that are deserving, that have the marks to go to university, have the opportunity. Make sure that we increase NSFAS to 6 billion rand so that we have students who are able to really receive that money, go to university and empower themselves, because when we go forward as young people, we are not going forward alone. We are going forward with our grandmothers, our mothers, our fathers. Those are the people that are with us. So I think that is one of the things that we really want to make sure that we really hammer on as the DA Youth when it comes to education and many issues that are affecting young people in this country today.
Very briefly, as we wrap up, where are you going to find that 6 billion rand from?
What we are saying is we need to be able to increase our infrastructure funding and budget. We need to take it to 10% when we allocate the budget so that we create jobs there, number one. Number two, we need to also be able to look at where can we tax? Can we tax the private sector? Increase the tax when it comes to, business, company tax. Those are the type of things that we need to look at, because I don't think we are treating the private sector as the way that we need to treat them. We are treating them with gloves. So we need to do more to ensure that we empower young people to be able to have opportunities.
Luyolo Mphithi from the Democratic Alliance, thanks so much for your time on SABC News. It's time for a short break. I'll have more news for you when we come back. Do stay with us.